Hello, everybody. This is a presentation for the amazing new tech company, Rainmaker. Augustus, would you like to let the crowd here know exactly what Rainmaker is?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Augustus. Pleasure to meet all of you guys. Would love to chat after this in more detail. But we are a next generation cloud seeding and weather modification company. We use drones, next generation radar to make it snow more to help mitigate the sort of severe winters that we saw just this past year, and also help end drought as we know it by making more precipitation.
And can you explain the exact mechanism of that?
I was planning on it. So we got a bunch of slides here to talk about what cloud seeding is, right? We've got this very cool video here, which is of one of our drones. It's called an Elijah drone that actually we fly into clouds to seed them, to make them precipitate more. But before even getting into the tech, before even getting into how and why this all works, and Ivy, feel free to jump in with questions, whatever, just like shout or something. Like, this is the real fundamental motivator. The state of the American West and its water supply is bad. And cloud seeding is the only technology that we have that we can use to bring more water to the Rocky Mountain West, to everything east of the Sierras, right? Solving for this kind of drought by making more water, by making it rain more. That's what we're fundamentally interested in. And this chart, this is like purely me talking my own book. Obviously, you should trust but verify. Obviously, you should be skeptical if I'm showing you a chart where I say, like, our technology solution is better than all of the other ones. But here's the really candid breakdown, right? What are our options to mitigate drought in the Western United States? We can use water more efficiently. Awesome. We can irrigate more efficiently. That's something that we should do, but that doesn't actually add new supply. We can recycle water in our municipal and residential areas. That's great, but that also doesn't add more supply. Desalination, that's great for California, for Oregon, for Texas, places with a coast. But if we're in Boise right now, we're not going to build a desalination plant in Oregon, 1,000-mile pipeline across the mountains, and then get all of the permitting for that, what have you, to bring new fresh water. Cloud seeding is the only technology that you can actually create new water with, that you can stand up over the course of a couple months by manufacturing drones, deploying them to the field, and it's the only thing that is cost effective on an acre foot or gallon, or dollar per gallon basis.
I would like to ask you, what piqued your interest about fighting drought and saving in droughted areas? Do you have any sort of personal connection?
So, I mean, I sometimes wish that, like, for the sake of the narrative, I could say I grew up on a ranch and, like, my ranch ran it. Like, that's not true. That didn't happen to me. My connection to drought actually comes because I grew up in Connecticut. Where'd you grow up, by the way?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
So I know a thing or two about a thing or two.
So this is more personal for you. Yeah. Have you ever watched Chinatown, the movie?
Yes, I have.
Okay, people killing each other over water. Mm-hmm. That's bad. We don't want that to happen. So I grew up in Connecticut. There was never want for water there, right? Nobody was going to go out of business. Nobody was going to lose their home because there wasn't enough water. When I moved out west for college, and then after college, people talking about drought, people talking about having to turn off water to, like, people's showers because there wasn't enough. That was shocking. That was really surprising. Trying to solve for drought just so that people could have this sort of, like, baseline obvious thing, like water. You know, there's a bunch of touchiness around this, but, like, having water is essentially like a human right? Everybody should have it. It's ridiculous that people across the world don't. It's ridiculous that people in a first world country like the United States don't have water. And so just improving this baseline standard for quality of life and keeping the ecosystems that we have from collapsing, that's what was the motivation. Also, sci-fi tech guy, was, like, super into what new technologies could change the future. But it was aside from just the sci-fi interest, it was, like, trying to improve people's quality of life and improve the environments that we have.
What was your genesis into an interest in tech and science and the intersection of that?
Ayahuasca. Just kidding.
Okay.
No, it wasn't that. No, I'm just kidding. I don't like that stuff. I've never done it. So I never thought that I would be a tech guy. Mm-hmm. I never thought that I would start a company. I don't really like tech, right? Like, it's mostly comprised of, as far as I can tell, narcissists, people that just want money for the sake of money. people building like AI slop that either will like create some sort of evil demon that's going to run the world, or just some company that they'll be able to cash out on people because of. That's what's true of like, I don't know, Polymarket, Kalshi. OpenAI is basically just trying to take over the world, but they're not able to say it outright. My interest in science started when I was super young, because when I found out about, have you ever watched the Cosmos series with Neil deGrasse Tyson?
That was like his TV show?
It was a TV show,
Yes,
like his Netflix show.
I have, yes.
What did you think of it?
What did I think of it? I remember they would show it to us in like middle school science classes, and I thought he was really engrossing and a very interesting educator and communicator of scientific ideas.
Yeah, okay, so same deal.
Yeah.
He got me as well. In fact, actually, I ended up studying physics in college, and I like to joke that like he tricked me into studying physics, because the cosmos is not like an accurate representation of what collegiate physics is like. So you're not going to solve the secrets of the universe. You're going to figure out like where a particle moves. But anyway, yeah, it was that initial, I don't know, like the sort of Faustian aspiration to like understand how the universe works. That's what made me interested in science in the first place.
And tech was sort of a modern, capable jumping off point to explore grander scientific ideas and quandaries that you had.
Yeah, I mean, if Rainmaker could exist as like a research lab that was purely like government funded, if Rainmaker could be a nonprofit, sure, fine. I would do either of those. The reason why we're a company is just because this is the vehicle that best serves actually producing more water by making it precipitate more.
And I went to the Julia Davis Park over there, and you guys have enclosed in like a glass box an example of one of those Elijah drones, yes? Yeah. Yes, one of these drones that you have, and it was sort of like kind of floating around, but it's like encased in a glass box, so you can get like a good look at it. It's actually like a lot larger than I thought it would be in my head, which is curious. I'd only ever seen, imaging like this of it. Can you sort of explain the mechanism of this drone, how this technology came to be, and how you guys went about formulating technology like this?
Yeah, totally. So I think before even talking about the drone, it's in a glass box, by the way, because the propellers can cut your head off. So we need to keep people away from it.
So true.
Like cloud seeding, it's existed for 80 years, right? It was invented by some guys from General Electric a really long time ago. The reason why we're only having this conversation now, and why cloud seeding isn't ubiquitous already, is because of two things. One, nobody was ever able to prove that it works. Like if you fly into a cloud and disperse some random dust and then it snows, that doesn't mean that the snow is man-made, right? We had to figure out how to prove that the snow was man-made. That was the first big breakthrough. And then the second thing is that the cost of it, if you're spending a few $1 million on an airplane, if you're spending thousands of dollars per flight hour of that airplane, if you're using really expensive materials like silver, like it would make it prohibitively expensive to make more water this way. And so what Rainmaker's done differently, first of all, like these are the three components of our technology stack. The first of which is we're targeting much more accurately than anybody ever has before in cloud seeding operations. So we're finding clouds that have small drops of cold water in them, and those drops are too small to naturally precipitate. If you find those cold drops, effectively, those small cold drops of water, and we do that with radar, with modeling, with balloons, with probes on the drone. If you find those conditions very precisely, then you fly your drones into them, and you actually seed. So you need a drone that's significantly less costly than a plane. You need a drone that can fly in super severe weather. You need to release the right kind of particles, the right concentration of particles. If you find the right conditions, and you use a drone to much more cost effectively actually seed the clouds, and then you validate, most importantly, you measure how much of the precipitation is man-made, that's like a fundamental, game-changing, and revolutionary approach to weather modification that we're doing every day. We're operating in Pocatello, just a little bit southeast of here. We're operating in Utah, Oregon, with this tech stack at a high level. So that's what it looks like at a high level, but you specifically asked about the drone.
Yeah.
We can skip ahead just to that. So you see this right here. This GIF is just going to loop through over and over, but the important part is what you saw on the propellers a second ago. So Anybody, just by show of hands, you ever flown a DJI drone, or you ever seen a DJI drone? 1, 2, 3. All right, plenty of people. Great.
Drones are huge in Boise, I guess.
Apparently. So if you try to fly a DJI drone for a cloud seeding mission, it would not work. 1, it can't carry enough of the silver to actually seed the cloud, but 2, it would ice up. So these cold wintertime clouds that we're trying to make more snow out of, the water in those clouds will freeze onto the propellers and they'll fall out of the sky. What we've done differently is we've engineered this anti-icing system onto the propellers. So we're taking battery power from the drone and then conducting that into the propellers, melting ice off. That's something that no quadcopter, no drone like ours, or no other drone in NATO or the United States can do. Now, actually, I'll skip that part, but the drone itself, the fact that we can fly in these severe conditions, that's a big deal. But then also the aerosol dispersal system. We have to tune the right concentration of particles, the right number of particles of silver iodide in order to actually freeze the water into the cloud into snowflake sizes. That's something that we do. That's that guy there. That's what the ADS, or aerosol dispersal system, looks like. That is what actually freezes the drops, turns them into snowflakes, and that's a very important subsystem on the drone too.
So you've talked about how some of the technology of this, even though cloud seeding as a concept has existed for 80 years now, did this model, as we see it now, have to go through many different iterations and prototypes? Were there like many different sort of turnovers of trying things and it not working until you were able to get to this point? Or was it sort of like an epiphanous thing where you realized that this is what needed to happen and then it all came from there?
No, we got it right the first time.
You got it right the first time?
No, I'm just kidding.
No,
just kidding. So Caitlin, Caitlin Siski, our head of research, seated right here in the front. Sorry to put you on blast. She's been here since the beginning. She's seen about 2 years of everything not working.
Mm-hmm.
So we had initially we tried to buy drones from other vendors. They couldn't survive in the icing. They crashed. They couldn't survive in the wind. They crashed. We tried to build our own drones. It didn't work. They crashed. We weren't able to really precisely target the right conditions, and so we were just seeding clouds that could never be made to precipitate more. We didn't have the right sensors to actually prove that the precipitation was man-made. All of these things were problems. Totally transparently, we only got good at cloud seeding as of January. Like, we only got the ability to repeatably and reliably produce millions of gallons of additional water, if not tens of millions of gallons of additional water, as of January this year, because everything that we were working on for the last 3 years altogether finally came into place and synthesized in a way that made us the first company ever that can actually measure what our yields are.
How has it been sort of having to cavort with the tech world? You spoke a little bit about it earlier. You have sort of a cynical view on tech, but you understand that it's the best and most current medium right now to get these ideas and concepts out into the world. But how has it been for you, coming from a science background, having to sort of commune with the modern tech landscape?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that I have a cynical view on tech. I think I have a pretty honest view about tech.
Some might say that's cynical. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we see eye to eye on it, but some people, tech optimists and technocrats would say that that's cynical or jaded.
Well, yeah, like, it's probably wrong that the United States federal government, which is ostensibly like the government for the entire planet, is run by a bunch of like venture capitalists that have done nothing besides like take dollars and put them into their friends' companies that were fake. Like, that's pretty bad.
It's really
right?
bad. It's really bad, in fact.
Yeah, you think so?
I think it's really bad. Yeah, I think it's insidious.
Why?
Why do I think it's bad that like technocrats run this country?
You're from Los Angeles.
Sure, but it doesn't mean I have to drink the Kool-Aid like that. I'm not from Silicon Valley, I'm not so steeped into it. But yeah, I think it's a net negative for people, and I think it's a careless and inconsiderate model through which to rule the world. And I think that these people that are like at the fore of, I don't know, modern technology don't really have any of our best interests at hearts. And like you said earlier, it's mostly about accruing as much profit as possible.
I mean, I think that that's like fair. I think that that is generally true. You're a Zoomer as well. Mm-hmm. You're like what, 23, 22?
22, yeah.
22. I think that there's something unique about our generation in that we're sort of the first generation that grew up when like the norm was nothing mattered, right?
Yes.
Like, maybe in the 60s, 70s, people first realized like, oh, I don't have to be Christian, right? But then for us, the norm was like nothing matters. Make as much money as you want. It doesn't even matter if you make as much money as you want. You can make the money in any way that you might like, whether that's through purely preying on people through like addictive gambling or selling what are ostensibly drugs, through like big pharma. Yeah, like tech right now as it exists is not governed by any moral framework whatsoever. It is purely concerned with clout and capital maximizing. Mm-hmm. But if you look at technology historically, like that was not the case. Some of the best inventors of the Enlightenment through like the American Industrial Revolution, they were very concerned about how to make the quality of life of their fellow man better. Yes. Like if you take Henry Ford as an example, a lot of problems with that guy, but like he took Ford Motor Company private. He bought all of the shares back so that he could give like not just a living wage, but like a comfortable wage to his staff. He built cars because that mode of transportation made everybody's lives better. If you work in the realm of atoms rather than bits, if you work in the physical world and you're actually making a physical good that improves the quality of people's lives, if you do that with some consideration for how it impacts the world around you, and the primary motive isn't just making money, you have a really different world. And like, it's actually entirely our fault for not calling out and shaming this purely capitalistic tendency to make money. Because by refraining from doing so, you end up allowing all of these technocrats to run the world, right? Like Rainmaker, I started it. Yeah, sure, it's a business. I like making money. I think it's a good thing to make money. I plan to try to make lots. However, that's not like the primary function. In fact, actually, it's a really stupid way to try to make a lot of money by modifying the weather. Like that is the most ridiculously hard mode way that you could try to make money. All my friends from Connecticut, like they went to Wall Street, not doing anything useful, making lots of money. My primary intention is to actually make more water for the farms that need it, the ecosystems that need it, and have a lot of fun with a lot of great team members along the way. And I hope that we can be a model for that. I hope that we can like sort of nag the more Machiavellian technocrats out of just cashing out by like, I guess this is recorded. There's some things I can't say. It would, as a hypothetical, imagine this. Imagine if you were running the government and your son had insider information as to what companies you could invest in. And he did, and then you cashed out because the government gave contracts to your son's invested company. That would be crazy. Anyway, I think that we should like call stuff out like that.
A lot of these companies are predicated on insider trading. Kalshi, the entire conceit of it is it literally is insider trading. And I think it's preys upon vulnerable people, and I think it's sinister. But this is, when you go out into the world with a company like this, is there part of you that wants to, I guess like I asked earlier, integrate yourself with more of people with the tech space to sort of, as a way to maybe change their minds about the methods that they've been using that you don't agree with? Like, do you feel like a company like Rainmaker could set an important example for like the tech founders of the future to put people's best interests over accruing as much money as possible?
So if you'll indulge me for a second here, there's different perspectives people have. Some say like, okay, the world's cooked, it's over, we're toasted, I might as well try to get my bag and cash out because that's what everybody else is doing. That's bad. Then there's people that say like, I'm just gonna go live on a farm by myself away from the world because the world is too bad and I don't want to participate in it. I don't think that works either because like eventually the world will encroach onto the farm. my aspiration is to use Rainmaker as a testament to building something that is truly generative, that is truly productive, that is pro-human, right? Like we're not just trying to create a future for the sake of like maximum efficiency either. Like I would prefer a future that integrates technological efficiency with human well-being, more water, better, greener ecosystems that maps to that. But in order to do that, like you have to play in the world, right? And that's a weird and scary thing. Like you're in entertainment, there's some really dark stuff there. In tech, there's some really dark stuff as well. The aspiration is to, with the council of great team members, like keep our heads screwed on straight, try to do something good, and do it like in the game, right? By the way, for what it's worth, just because this has been looping for a second, I feel I should
explain what this slide is.
Speaking of cloud seeding, back to cloud seeding for a second. What is really fundamentally different about Rainmaker, I mentioned like targeting, seeding, and validating better than ever before. This is perhaps one of the most like simply intelligible explanations of what validation looks like. Historically, people would just blast clouds. Maybe it would snow, maybe it wouldn't. Here, in this like GIF of NASA satellite data, you can see these black dots where our drones are flying. And you can see downwind of that in this like a dashed contour where our aerosols dispersed. You can see in an otherwise totally overcast day, only downwind of where we were seeding, the entire cloud freezes and precipitates out. And so you can use fancy radar, you can use fancy models to say how much precipitation you made, but the real breakthrough was in this moment where we were able to say, oh, all of the water in that cloud actually was frozen and induced to precipitate just downwind of where we were seeding. You can prove that it's man-made snow because in all the rest of this area, there's no snow. It's just downwind of where we were seeding. Like that's a very important and fundamental breakthrough.
What kind of people were front of mind when you were formulating this? Were you thinking about farmers and, the food supply being affected by droughts? Were you thinking about, I think about like in LA, how like the Silver Lake Reservoir, which is like around where I grew up, is basically completely dry. And because there's like even though now I guess Los Angeles is not technically a droughted area anymore, it's still very dry. And these places that have like placards on them that dub them to be like rivers or lakes or bodies of water or whatever have nothing in them. And so when you go through the world and you observe things like this, like who is top of mind? What kind of people and what kind of like lives do you want to impact with this technology?
Yeah, I think that the thing that is most obvious is farmers, right? Like we all eat food. We all want clean food. We all want the option to have our food grown nearby and in the United States at the very least. If those farmers don't have enough water, which they don't across most of the regions where we grow our food, between the Midwest, where the main aquifer is being depleted, the Ogallala, or Texas, where the aquifers are being depleted, they're getting less rain, the Central Valley of California, where all of the aquifers are critically depleted. Like if we don't make more water for them, then we all directly, no matter whether we're farmers or not, suffer from having to buy, more like lab-grown food, let alone, or lab-grown food or imported food.
Yeah.
Neither of those are great, right? Like the longer something has to be in transit, the more preservatives and additives are going to be in it. I would prefer that we have enough water, our farmers have enough water to make food locally. That's the first thing that I think about. But then the second thing is there's people outside of the U.S. We actually work in the Middle East to some extent. And there's people outside of the U.S. that have so little water that it's not like, oh, I have to import my food. It's like, oh, whether there's enough precipitation this year dictates whether I get to shower 2 or 1 times per week.
Yeah.
As much as like I'm a patriot and as I'm concerned about ensuring the well-being of Americans, I'm also really worried about like all of the people in these much more arid, much more developing countries that will not get to shower, will not get to eat at all if there's not enough of water. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing, it's not even like actually people, it's just that like I think that the natural world is beautiful. I think that the Colorado River is beautiful. I think that the birds and the fish and all of the species that live along these bodies of water and reservoirs, like they're just self-evidently good. It's really hard to be like anti-wildlife, like that'd be a pretty crazy take. Making more water for the sake of Bambi, to be hyperbolic, like that's another thing that I'm concerned about. Making sure that the world stays beautiful because we have enough water for the ecosystems, that matters too.
What has your experience been like speaking to the farmers or the people in the Middle East who you are developing this technology to help? What has it been like sort of coming into conversations with those people as like less of an abstraction and more of a personal thing where you realize that you actually do have something that could really alter the course of their lives?
So I'll answer your question, but first I want to do another poll of the room. Not whether you believe they exist or not, but who here has heard of chemtrails before, just by show of hands? Okay, most of the room. Just to determine who we got to have a slightly deeper chat with later, who believes that some nefarious entity is currently chemtrailing people across the U.S. and world? Nice. All right, then we got a conversation to have later. I'm excited to chat. The first thing to say is like, and I'll say what farmers and the customers that we worked with have said. But like the first thing is these people that desperately do need more water, they say, okay, I've heard of chemtrails. I'm concerned about chemtrails. I've heard about people blocking out the sun. I'm worried about like our ecosystem being poisoned. Are you doing that? And what we've been super lucky to find is like, as long as we're totally transparent about what we're doing, what materials we're using, how we're measuring what our effect is. Like farmers are really concerned about their bottom line, about ensuring that their crops are healthy, about ensuring that they're actually going to be able to continue farming. They've been wildly receptive. People in more drought-stricken areas throughout the U.S., so say like in Arizona, have been much more receptive than people that like don't desperately need water as much like in, say, Florida. That's the first thing. Like the people that just need water now, they are willing to have those conversations, and I'm super grateful about that. But then also, like, there's a lot of folks that still don't know what cloud seeding is. They don't know that it's been around for 80 years. They don't know that the materials that we're using, as defined by like the EPA, by any third-party studies, are safe. And they also don't know the difference between cloud seeding, for which you need like big puffy clouds to exist naturally to make more rain. They don't know the difference between that and, say, stratospheric aerosol injection. Have you heard of that, by the way?
I have not, actually. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah.
Stratospheric
aerosol injection.
Stratospheric aerosol injection?
Yeah, show of hands. Who's heard of that one?
Stratospheric aerosol injection. Okay, it's the people that work for the company that are raising their hands. That's cheating.
A couple others also.
Shout out to y'all. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Could you explain that as an aside?
Yeah, totally fair. So like cloud seeding, as I described, it's helping clouds precipitate a little bit more than they otherwise would have. We've got 80 years of data on its safety. It was invented in America. It modifies weather on like a local scale. Stratospheric aerosol injection, on the other hand, it is this real mode of atmospheric engineering that some people are experimenting with and suggesting we do at scale to release reflective particles into the upper atmosphere to block out more sunlight to cool the planet down. That's pretty super villainous as well, or at least you could imagine how it could be. Now, cat's out of the bag. There are people in the United States researching how to do stratospheric aerosol injection. There are companies that are doing stratospheric aerosol injection in the United States and Israel. That I think people have reasonable concerns about because we haven't done that at scale before. Is there any way to prevent anybody in the world from doing this? Probably not. It would affect the entire planet. It would cool the entire planet down. And I think that we should have like a very measured conversation about how to deploy that, if we should ever deploy it, how to regulate it, or maybe ban it. But a lot of people think that cloud seeding is that, and cloud seeding is not that. So as long as you can delineate those two things, I think that also has helped with the extent to which people have been receptive.
You would say cloud seeding is a more localized, specific target rather than like a full-scale global attack, I guess, on weather.
Yeah. So I don't know if I would say SAI is like an attack, but at the very least you could say like cloud seeding locally changes precipitation. You can turn it off whenever you want. If you stop cloud seeding, like it's done. There will be no residual effects thereafter. Stratospheric aerosol injection, on the other hand, it will affect the entire planet. Those aerosols will stay suspended for years. They will residually cool the planet down for like an extended period of time. That's pretty different. I think a lot of people don't know about that either. We probably should, because a lot of people are going to start deploying this in the next couple of years if we don't regulate it.
But back to my initial question before that, how has it been communing with farmers and people in droughted areas that are looking to you as maybe like a beacon of hope or a beacon of light in continuing the work and the livelihoods that they have?
Yeah, farmers get it, right? Like farmers, you grew up in Los Angeles, I grew up in Connecticut. There's this totally false narrative that like farmers are these country blumpkins that like aren't particularly concerned with science or anything.
It's a very classist idea.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like totally false. I mean, I grew up subject to that. In reality, most farmers are like better chemists than kids in college studying chemistry.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they need to know soil chemistry, they need to know water chemistry in order to maximize their yields. The farmers that we've dealt with, they totally understand like what the mechanics of cloud seeding is, what the utility of it is, like why it could or should be done. They've been super supportive. The people concerned with conservation even, right? Like these more environmentally inclined groups, they think it's super straightforward too, right? If there's not enough water in the Colorado River, as an example, or if there's not enough water in the Snake River, as another example, then one of 3 or 4 groups loses. Either the ecosystem loses, and so the environmentalists don't like that. They want cloud seeding to produce more water so that you don't have to take it away from the ecosystem. If you don't take it away from the ecosystem, though, then it's either farms, residences, like showering, flushing your toilet, washing your dishes, or industry that is detracted from. Now, like sometimes you have to make hard decisions with finite resources, but another thing that I hope Rainmaker does is prove that you can actually grow the pie. Like you can actually build technologies if you are concerned about people's well-being, if you're not purely motivated from like capitalistic incentive, you can create more water so we don't have to make these Malthusian trades between either ecosystems or farms, residences or industry. Like if we make enough water, we can actually have more of all of those things. Yeah. And all of those things can be more lush and abundant. Like that's super resonant for environmentalists, for farmers, certainly for like industrialists that we talk to.
Can you explain what's happening in this diagram?
Yeah, totally. So in the last GIF here, what I showed you was like our satellite imagery of an entire cloud freezing, precipitating out. This is fairly interpretable without any context on how cloud seeding works or what it is. This, though, is more of what our cloud seeding validation looks like. So most of the time, you're not going to have a cloud that's thin enough to precipitate all the water out of it and create like this hole. Mm-hmm. Most of the time when you're seeding, you're going to need to use radar instead. And so what you see here is a GIF of where our drone is flying from a cabin in Eastern Oregon, and then sequentially releasing plumes of aerosol of silver iodide downwind. And these enhancements, these boxed like spikes in reflectivity where otherwise you don't see much, that is purely man-made snowfall, purely man-made precipitation. And so most of our validation stack looks like this. Most of it looks like us using radar to identify where enhanced precipitation is correlated with where our drone was flying. This is something that's totally unprecedented as well, and across these handful of flights, we produce 6.5 million gallons of totally unambiguously man-made precipitation.
Is there a way you could explain to me the mechanism of how the silver iodide and the clouds interact in order to create precipitation?
Yeah, totally. So, simply put, there are these clouds that have small drops of cold liquid water in them, right? Those drops of water are too small to naturally precipitate. Mm-hmm. Silver iodide has a crystal structure that's almost identical to ice. Hand waving some stuff away. We'll just accept that as the explanation. The water, the small drops of water, will then favorably freeze onto the silver iodide crystal. They'll freeze onto that crystal more frequently and more easily than they would accumulate into bigger drops. And so once you initially freeze that water, it grows into a snowflake that's big enough to precipitate. But actually, once you freeze those initial crystals, they break apart and create billions, if not trillions, of additional crystals that will collide with other drops that will freeze into bigger snowflakes and then induce much more precipitation. So you really have this chain reaction where you have a mostly liquid or all liquid cloud. You put silver iodide in it, the water then freezes onto it into big snowflakes. Those spread out, and you get lots of snow on the ground thereafter.
Wow. Interesting. Really interesting. I mean, this is like a simple question, I guess, but like how long did it take you to, I guess, fully be able to understand all of these concepts? Like,
I don't.
You don't?
Nope.
You don't?
Definitely
you don't?
Not. No.
Okay.
No.
I'm piercing the veil a little bit. You don't?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. I think I have a much better grasp now than I did 3 years ago when I started the company. Well, I don't know. What do you think?
What do you think?
You
Do you
think
think he
so?
has a good grasp?
On the right track? Great.
You're on the right track. I mean, you're communicating it effectively, so I think that's the first step to fully understanding. Also, it's like in development, so I think there will be plenty more things to understand. You're okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
Am I? Thank you.
You'll be fine, Augustus. You'll understand it soon. As maybe I will. Is there like literature on cloud seeding? Because I am like quite curious about how I could better understand this in like a text form. Is there like literature on this concept?
No, you just got to trust me.
I just gotta trust. Great,
No,
straight
okay.
up, cool.
There are publications. Yeah, if you look up the Snowy study, SNOWIE, that explains pretty well how all this works and how you prove that the snow's man-made.
The Snowy study. Everybody, if you're curious, if you have more questions, resort to that. Okay, cool. What else is on your presentation?
Nothing much really. I mean, I think we should. This is Caitlin actually pointing out the hole in the cloud that we made. So that snow there on the ground is man-made.
You look so happy. See how happy Rainmaker makes people? It's amazing. Invest in it. What are you hoping to get out of presenting at Hack Fort? What are you hoping to get from connecting with the community in Boise?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, we're operating in Pocatello right now, right? Like we're making more snow for the Bear River Basin for the basin that flows off into the Great Salt Lake. But in spite of that, like most people don't know what cloud seeding is. A lot of people think that cloud seeding is chemtrails or it is something more nefarious than it in fact is. And so my first aspiration for our conversation, for all the ones that we're going to have after, it is just to be open and transparent about what this tech actually is, what its limits are, when and where it's safe and when it wouldn't be. It's just that sort of like education and discourse that we want to have. Because, you know, like I've said this before publicly, 25-year-old guy says that he's going to disperse particles into the cloud to modify the weather, and he's from Los Angeles of all places.
Sounds
like,
spooky.
Don't trust that guy. Definitely trust, but verify at the very least. And so if I can be a resource, if anybody from our team can be a resource for you guys to ask questions too, about how we're making more snow, about how we need to make more snow for these ecosystems, then like I would love to. That's what the aspiration was. So do you want to do Q&A or you got other questions that you want to ask?
I think I'm good. I think we could take it out to the audience if you're ready for that.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, great. Does anybody in the audience have questions for Augustus? You here in the front.
All right. What sort of concerns or have you looked at the aspect of like taking water away from what might be downwind, I guess? I don't know the technicalities here, but I don't really fully understand that this is new water. This would be taking water that exists up in the air and eventually it would precipitate down. Are there concerns as far as eventually, but no, we're going to take it now?
I think that's,
Rights in that regard.
it's a question that's totally worth asking. Yeah, so gotcha, thank you. Yeah, it's a question that's totally worth asking, right? Like, are you actually making more water for these areas, or are you just taking it from other places? In the industry, this is called stealing Peter to pay Paul. And the answer is resoundingly at this point, no, you're not taking water from one place to put it in the other. And the reason for that being, the vast majority, like over 90% of all the water that traverses the atmosphere in the United States, it doesn't precipitate over it. right? It evaporates, sublimates away, or precipitates over the oceans. And when it evaporates, sublimates away, it doesn't recondense into precipitable cloud. So what we can do is if we target, say, like prefrontal portions of systems, postfrontal portions of systems, clouds that have very small drops that otherwise would never naturally precipitate before evaporating, then you can get purely additive supply. There's that. And then another consideration is the amount of water that you're actually taking out of the cloud from seeding. It's like less than 1% of all of that water that's in there. And so the cloud will persist very well even after seeding, and could precipitate long after you've seeded it. And so because there's so much more water in the atmosphere than is coming down, because of how little seeding actually takes from these cloud systems, we're not even close to the point in time where you need to negotiate over cloud water rights. Now, that being said, in the distant future, a decade, 2, 3 decades from now, because there is a finite amount of water in the atmosphere, there probably will be litigation between like California and Colorado about who gets how much of each cloud. But once we get it's going to be crazy. But once we get to that point, we have so much more water on the ground than we do right now. The world and our farms and our ecosystems are so much more abundant that seems like a thing worth tolerating because we've gotten so much more down.
I think we have time for one more question. Does anybody want to ask a question? You over there in the "Don't Tread on Me" shirt. Yeah, go ahead.
So philosophical questions about late-stage capitalism aside, what's the revenue model for you? Like, who's your ICP, and what does like a typical customer contract look like?
Yep. So I'll tell you what I want it to look like and what it currently looks like. What I want it to look like is being paid on the basis of acre feet produced or inches of snow produced, right? Either for municipal groundwater conservation districts, farms, ski resorts, what have you. We have the ability now to measure what our yields are and then could be paid variably in a way that aligns our incentive to get paid the most and our customers' incentive to get the most water. That's what we would have ideally. Now, we've mostly worked with either governments or ski resorts who in the past didn't have vendor options that could measure what their yields are, right? And if nobody could ever measure what the yields were, and if you're a government that doesn't really know how to pay on a success basis, then we do firm fixed price contracting. We try to contract on the basis of the value of like the 40th percentile amount of water that we could produce on the year. That's what it looks like right now. I don't think that government's going to become very innovative and open to outcomes-based contracting in the future, but for ski resorts, farms, hydroelectric utilities, we'll transition to that outcomes-based pricing.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for attending this conversation between me and Rainmaker. Augustus, how can people connect with Rainmaker if they want to know more or follow the company's progress?
Yeah, totally. Rainmaker.com is a great place to look. You can look us up on social media, either Rainmaker Tech on Twitter or Rainmaker on Instagram, and also contact at Make Rain. You can hit us all up there for questions. Anybody that's wearing Rainmaker merch, you can talk to right after this too. So happy to chat with all of you guys after this.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Augustus.